All right. We are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm the only one ready.
It's off.
Of course.
Hi, folks. We are ready. We are live.
We are live.
Hi. What? What are you saying?
Jake broke the camera. Not my fault.
Tell me when.
Yeah, we're good.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our semi-monthly, bi-monthly live YouTube workshop. This is where we work to raise both awareness and support for our Purple Heart Project, and at the same time, give you an opportunity to get questions to your answers. We'll do it the Jeopardy way. Answers to your questions. Tonight's topic is new versus old, talking about hand planes. Do we go with an old one and refurbish it, or do we go with a brand new one and enjoy it? I'm letting my bias show. No, we'll talk about them individually. Now, I got a lot of stuff to do tonight. We're turning this into just a big, massive giveaway. So here's what we do. To reward you for your generosity, we're giving away a ton of stuff. I'm going to tell you what we have. Or should we wait? How many people do we have on right now?
174.
Oh, that's too low. We'll do it a little bit later. But we do have a lot of stuff to give away, and at some point, maybe in 15 minutes, I'll tell you what all the prizes are. But there's a link on there where you can go in to find out. We also are continuing our, what you say, shaking your head about, Jake?
Go in there to find out what.
Well, you're going to look at the link, and that's how you sign up so that you can get in on the draw. It doesn't cost anything.
I'll post
it. Yeah, watch Frick's post. Now, who do we have? We have me here, Rob Cosman, your host. Thank you. We have Jake. Do a quick spin around behind the camera. We're missing Megan tonight. She got a job. We have Frick behind the tech side of things. We have Rex in charge of security. We have...
He apprehended the first person.
We have Frick's youngest son. What's your name? What's your name? He has no name. But tonight we'll call him...
What is his name?
It's McLaren.
McLaren. That's right. Over here we have Ken. Ken's going to be an integral part of our presentation tonight. We'll tell you more about that momentarily. We have Super Dave on remotely. We have Luther on, and Luther's going to be answering a lot of the questions and also feeding questions to us. We're going to talk about the jerseys that you see over here to my left. We've got all kinds of stuff, tons and tons of stuff. Let's start right off with a question, and then I'll just intermittently do the introductions.
All right. First question comes from Barry in Grand Cayman.
Hi, Barry. Oh, Grand Cayman. Wow, I've been there once.
And he says, how do you remove the rust, but not the patina of an older plane?
The best way to remove rust is, can you grab one new? Actually, get one of each. Red, yellow, and green, please. So this is called a, what's it called, Jake?
Sandflex.
Sandflex, that's how Luther pronounces it. So it is a piece of rubber that has silicon carbide abrasive in it. So it's not on the surface. In other words, it doesn't wear out. And
it just wears
away. Yeah, it wears away, but I mean, it's not on the surface like sandpaper. So it's all the way through it. And you can use this. Now you want the green, which is the medium, and that matches the typical grind level of hand planes, saws, just about anything. Yellow is fine. And if you were to use yellow on the side of a plane, it'll leave a shiny spot. Red is coarse. If you use red on the side of a plane or on a plane, it'll leave a scratch. So there's the three. The green one is the one you want. They're not very expensive. Everybody that has metal should own one of these. So let me just give you a quick demonstration. And I would only use it to, actually there's where I went in and started to work on this one. So if you've got a spot right here that you want to clean up, a little bit of elbow grease required. And depending on how bad it is, will determine how much work it's going to take. But you can bring that back to looking like new. Now, let me show you how it works on bronze. I started to work on this one the numerous times that I've done this. Are we sure that that is green, Jake? You are? Yeah. So this is actually the bronze side. So what I'll do is just work that for a few seconds, and it'll bring that right back to new. How much do they cost? Do you remember?
$4.
No, it's just nothing. Buy that when you order a dovetail saw and a hand plane, a set of Shapton stones, and a dovetail marking knife. Just throw this in with it. That's all it takes, and you'll have it looking like new. Or if you had rust, now I don't have, well, I actually do. I've got some rust on this blade, so I'll show you how it works on that. I mean, it's not going to do anything about pitting, but it'll certainly go in and clean that up, and quickly. So, best way to handle it. Best way to avoid it is to use, Ken, sorry, would you get a camellia oil and a plain sack?
No, just a plain sack.
Why, is the camellia not on?
Yeah.
It's coming. So that's how you treat it. In a minute, I'll show you how to avoid it. While we're waiting for Ken to bring that back, Frick, can you give me the next one?
Sure. All right, next question. Let's see.
You have these already, right? So that we
Yep.
can just rattle them off.
Yep, Sam Slade in Utica, New York.
Hi, Sam. I know Sam.
Would making totes and knobs using exotic woods be practical?
Yes. Yes. And I actually, what I was looking for is I just came across some that I was in the midst of that I never got finished. I don't think there's any examples here of ones that I've made. I don't think. No, there isn't. I'm going to answer it this way. If you're trying to restore something and make it look pretty and whatever, fine. But if you're just looking for a plane to use, just stick with the one that's on there and go. There's no problem making the knob. That's easy. You drill your hole, take a piece of wood at least that big around, drill a hole down through the middle, and you can turn it between centers, do the shape, and it's easy. However, when it comes to doing the rear tote, I'll give you a little tip here. So you're trying to drill on an angled hole down through like that, and it has to meet up properly, and you also have a toe screw here if you're dealing with anything above a number 4. So what it's best to do is actually lay this out on a square piece of wood. And then I would have the piece big enough so that, let's say this is my piece of wood. So you want your grain is running this way. So you would end up having your tote would look something like this, right? So I would cut my piece of wood down here and down here so that I could stand my piece of wood on a flat end and drill my hole down through here instead of trying to manage something like this on an angle. In other words, if you're trying to set that handle, that rear tote, on your drill press and tipping your drill press over like this, it's just wanting to slide. So much easier to work in the square. Start with a bigger piece of wood, or even if you have to scab on a piece underneath here so that it's standing perpendicular to the drill press when you do it, it's a lot easier. And shaping that's not easy, especially if you're going to go in and try to use a router, especially on an exotic wood. I would take multiple passes, meaning you raise your bit up, you take a small pass off both sides, then you raise it up a little bit more. I'm telling you right now, if you go in there and try to hog all that off on a hard piece of wood, that's dangerous. It's too small of a piece. You're fighting a lot of resistance, and it's too easy to grab out of your hands. You're cutting against the grain, and if you're not cutting against the grain, you're cutting across the end, which is a much tougher cut to go across here, just like on a hand plane, than it is to go down here. So a little bit at a time, and a sharp bit, and that's your best chance. And then you got a ton of sanding to do, and it is a pain. I have done it. It's a pain, but you can do it. Back to the first question. There's your best bet for keeping your planes from getting covered in rust. When you're done with them, You take it, this one, there's 4 different sizes. You put that inside there, draw that string, and it's silicone impregnated. It'll keep it from rusting. And I know that for a fact because I used to use them when I traveled across the country doing wood shows. Next.
Okay, this next one comes from Jim Sinowaski. Sinisky? From West Homestead,
Sorry about the name. The
Pennsylvania.
pronunciation.
He says, if I add a new thick blade in my older Stanley plane, will I have to widen the mouth opening? If so, how?
Okay, so let's get into it. If we look at this Stanley plane, actually this is a better example because I wouldn't know if I have 4. Here's a 4.5. So I am going to take my, Ken, do you know where my my calipers are? Okay. Here's a typical Stanley 4.5, not very easy to find, by the way. And this one would date, this would be back, last patent date on this is 1902, so this one is old. And this doesn't have the center screw, so this would be before 1905, I think is the date. But if you look at the blade, that blade, I'm gonna, oh, Ken's got it for me, thank you. I'm gonna measure the blade. So we're talking about 72 thousandths of an inch in thickness. Now compare that to an IBC replacement blade, which is going to come out at 140 thou in thickness. So it's almost double the thickness. So this little thin blade would, no matter what you did on heavy wood, it would have a tendency to vibrate or chatter. And I've tuned these up to the point where we had them working as good as they possibly can, and they would still ring hollow when you plane. It will cut a shaving, but it's just nowhere near the feel that you get out of something like this. Or there's the Wood River version of a 4.5, or a Lee Nielsen. I've got a. Where'd it go? You don't know where it is?
No, I know where it is.
Oh, you sent it away.
Of course it.
Anyway, if you want to put a thick blade in this plane, let's take this one. The first problem you're going to encounter, this is called the yoke. When you turn the adjuster knob, the old-fashioned style, that adjuster knob engages the yoke. The yoke goes through the blade and engages this little slot in the chip breaker, and that's what pushes the blade out for a thick shaving, retracts it for a thin shaving. The problem is this. In order for this to engage the chip breaker, it has to pass through the blade. Well, if you double the thickness of the blade, what happens is you no longer are thick enough to, long enough to pass through the blade, does not make it to the chip breaker. You don't have any, you could tap it, but you no longer have any adjustment with your adjuster knob. So I designed this back in 2008, and it was just simple. What we did is we put 2 little tabs of steel on the underside of the chip breaker. Do I have a separate chip breaker there, Jake, so I can take it apart? I've got my screwdriver here. These 2 little tabs of steel, my name on it, are attached here, so they reach down into the slot to reach that little short yoke, and that gives you all of your motion. So that's the first thing you have to consider. And if you're wondering why nobody had done this before, well, all the replacement blades don't exceed 90, 95 thou for that very reason. Much beyond that, and you don't get your full range of motion. Well, if you're going from 72 thou to 90 thou, you're gaining 18 thou. That's not that big of a deal. This is a big deal. You're doubling the thickness. Plus the chip breaker, which is... Chip breaker on this, I think, is 125. Yep. 125 thou. Chip breaker over here is 66 thou. So there's a substantial amount of metal. So that's going to make a big impact. However, the question was, are you going to have to open the throat? Well, this throat, or this opening, was made for that thin blade. If you put a really thick blade in there, probably 60% of the time, you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to open that throat. Now, if you flip this over, the most important part of this aperture is this edge right here, bottom of the arrow. That's the part of the plane that puts pressure on the wood fiber directly ahead of the cutting edge, helping to hold it in place and not allowing it to tear. This edge back here is of no importance. Doesn't come anywhere near the blade. Remember, this is a bevel down, so the blade leaves the face of the frog somewhere around here. No part of it touches that part of the frog, okay? So your blade is leaving somewhere about here. The rest of it is of no consequence. However, that also doesn't do anything to help opening the throat. So the only edge we're going to work with is this one. So if you have to come in to open it up, the easiest way to do it is to use a file. Fine. It doesn't take, it's soft metal, so it doesn't take a lot to cut it. You want to hold it like this. So if I'm putting it in the vise, I want to hold it so that it's standing plumb, because I want to keep the file perpendicular to the sole of the plane. I don't want to tip it one way or the other. If I don't want to tip it this way, because then I'm making it more crowded in there. So let's show you what I mean. If you were to do a cross section, if you were to cut through here and look and see what's going on, here's what you have. You've got, and then back here, you have the frog. So your blade is sitting here, chip breaker sitting on top of it. So you don't want to crowd this area anymore. In fact, you might even have to come in and take some of this material out so that when it's really tight, at least when the shaving comes up in here, there's some area for it to go and it doesn't get jammed up. So you definitely don't want to file this down like up like this. You want to keep. I suggest you just keep it perpendicular like this, I suppose, instead of even taking anything off like that. And the way to do it is keep it straight, shortest distance between 2 points. Keep it square. So have your square handy. Don't do a whole lot at once. Check it. Go in, take a little bit more. Don't hesitate to put the blade in there and see if you've got clearance. Now you can pull your frog back. I'll show you. But you're limited on how far you can pull your frog back in a couple of ways. On some planes, your first limitation is going to be this thing right here. That piece right in the middle. If you pull it back too far, then that is sticking up higher than the face of the frog, and when you put your blade in there, it's going to be sitting on that. That's no good. So you're going to be limited to wherever that is just a little bit less than flush with the face of the frog. But you can pull that back as far as possible and then work from there. Put your new blade in place and see if you have clearance. If you don't, file a little bit more until you're comfortable. If you just clear it, you want a little more than just clear it, because you can always move the frog forward and close the throat up. But if you just clear it when you're already all the way back, meaning your frog has been pulled all the way back, then you don't have the ability to take a heavier shaving because you've got such a small clearance. So pull the frog all the way back, fit it to that opening, maybe add a little bit, and then from that point, you're good to go. All right, next.
We have 548 now. If you want to make any sort of announcement. Prizes.
I want a really good audience for Ken, so I'm going to go wait a little bit longer. So I will. Listen, if you are a combat wounded vet that has been to our program as part of our, who's doing that tonight?
Nobody.
No, somebody has to do that. Does Rex know enough? Know any of these guys?
I know Danny Bell.
Well, Danny.
Super Dave.
Ken, can you do that?
Yeah, if they identify.
Okay, if they identify themselves. So please identify yourself. You just have to say, give me an example. Danny Bell.
From
vet, scholarship vet, and the class you were in, and then we can give you a shout out. So Ken's gonna, you can watch that, Ken. So I want to bring your attention over here. So if you're not a hockey player, then I have to explain what pickup hockey is. Pickup hockey is a bunch of old men that are in the heart attack phase of life who go out on the ice and their brain fights with their body over dominance. Brain says, I'm still young and I can do this. Body says, are you kidding me? But we do it anyway.
Pickup hockey is the lifeblood of Canada.
It is that too. So I run pickup hockey multiple days during the week. So I decided to turn it into an opportunity to expand exposure of the Purple Heart Project. So went out and got jerseys made, and the jerseys have our Purple Heart logo on there with Purple Heart Project on the back. But my daughter Annika, I hope she's watching so I can give her credit, said, Dad, why don't you put the name of every vet that's been to the class on the back of the jersey? And I thought, oh, it'd be fantastic. So these guys know that they will not be forgotten. So we just got that done. This is the first time. I gave each of the 22 guys that play with a particular group gets 2 jerseys, a light and a dark, because we mix the teams up every week. And I tell them a little bit. I mean, I skate around with nothing but being flooded with memories because Lance Corporal Bolden will fly by me and it's, yeah. Or Sergeant Thibodeau, a.k.a. Thibodeau. First name, Zach.
Well, I don't think that's an AKA. That's his name.
Yeah.
Speaking of
and
memories.
then there's Wheel Netherhead. Anyway, so these guys started asking questions like, who is this guy? And I tell them a little bit about it. And then those who have asked, I said, I'll tell you what, I will send you a link to a YouTube video we did with them. And I've had some great comments come back. So tonight, in their memory, we are going to pick some of these. And who wants to wear Joe Bright? Joe Bright's been an integral part of our program. Rex, you're Joe Bright tonight. You wear Joe's. Joe knows who he is. Joe helped me tremendously with Jesse. Who wants to be Bobbert?
Obviously me.
So Bob Abbott has been a great contributor. Bob's come back up and helped us teach. Bob has cashed in his, what do we call that?
Blue chip.
His blue chip, where we give every vet a blue chip. After they've been to the class, we know they know best who needs it. So if they make a recommendation, it's a shoe-in. So Frick, you're Bobbert tonight.
Is this a goalie jersey?
Yes. So,
We know that the clothes we've been getting you to wear lately have been too tight.
So it never fails. We always have Gary Burnett is on. So Jake is going to wear Gary's sweater tonight. It'll be behind the camera, but he's going to have it on. Ebby, you want to wear Ebby's? Okay. Eric Eberhardt is, actually that probably has changed. He was a staff sergeant. I think he just got a big promotion. Now I'm going to wear, I want to name some off so we can give credit. I don't have all the jerseys here because a lot of them are handed out, but there's more to hand out. So we've got Mark Witowski, MCPO. No. Sorry, Mark, can't remember. We have Kevin Smira, Staff Sergeant Kevin Smira. Everybody knows Kevin. He's on often. We have Neil Weatherhead, Sergeant Neil Weatherhead, and Sergeant Wilhelm. We also call him Kawasaki because he would cut dovetails at a speed that nobody could compete with. We have Lance Corporal Schumann, Trent, great guy. He's going to come back and help. I introduced Zach Thibodeau. Lance Corporal Bolden. Good friends with Charlie. Tell me his first name. Derek. Sorry. I think my memory's failing. Specialist Tyler Carroll from Texas. Tyler has been instrumental in how many guys have come because of Tyler?
3 or 4.
Yeah, just done a fantastic job doing that. Gunnar Wilk, this would be Ash down in Australia. I doubt very much he's working. Private Gray. So this guy, his story needs to be told at some point. He's from Utah. His name is Coop. He was born in a chicken coop, a converted chicken coop outside of Hamilton, Ontario. Quite the story. Vietnam vet, got shot up 3 or 4 times. Field surgery left him with gangrene. His insides didn't completely heal. But what a trooper.
Someone said that MCPO stands for Master Chief Petty Officer.
Master Chief Petty Officer, thank you. I'd asked Luther that earlier. Specialist Jers, what do you remember his first name?
Josh.
Josh, yeah, remember Josh, had a beard. They all have beards. Sergeant Fry, now this is Dan, Dan had lost a leg. I'm pretty sure it was I think it was a landmine. Lost a leg, has a prosthetic, tried out and actually passed the test to be a fireman. Amazing character. And just recently got his bench too. CPO, what's CPO stand for? This is PJ, right? TJ? PJ. And PJ was SEAL Team 5 or 7, SEAL Team 7. PJ came, he had just been, 4 months earlier, he had been shot how many times? 4 or 5 times. They'd blown off of the bottom of his leg was almost completely severed. He got hit in the hand, he got hit in the hip, and I think maybe one in the thigh. But I'm talking to him on the phone, and I said, and this happened. He's in a hospital recovering, and the class starts in 3 months. And he goes, yeah, I'll be there. He came, he was a trooper. Who do we have here? Corporal Ruffian. This was Jesse. This is one of our first Canadians. Don Cherry spoke about him one time in Hockey Night in Canada. Back in 2008-9, somewhere in there, an A-10 accidentally fired. It's a friendly fire incident. Happens a lot in war. Fired on a group of Canadians, and Jesse took some shrapnel from that experience, but he survived. And Specialist Grimstead. Now, first name? Thomas. So I got to show you this because Junior Bahadur came down the other day and he brought us this. Can you come in on that? This was the newspaper came up here a year or so ago and did a story on what we were doing. And this is Thomas Grimstead up there. That's his picture. That's the story done. And thank you very much, Junior, for doing the tech. I call him Tony. Tony Bahadur, who's a local Canadian that's been accepted to our program, and as soon as we can get it in. So I'm saving this for this one. How many people do we have on?
578.
Okay, I need a Canadian volunteer. Western Canadian volunteer. So Jack Lane, down in Texas, and Chris Chahowski, sorry, Chris, run what's called our bench brigade. In case you don't know, that is a group of civilian vets, civilian volunteers who agree to build a bench to our specs.
You don't have your mic.
I'm yelling.
Yeah.
Build it to our specs, and then arrange to deliver it. And Jack organizes all of this and tries to get the volunteer in close proximity to the vet. Anyway, we have Josh Brienne. This is Josh. Josh, big guy. Josh is Canadian Artillery.
Right.
He's out in British Columbia. And because of the COVID thing, we've not been able to arrange to have his bench that's in Washington State up to him. Anyway, I need a Canadian volunteer in either Alberta or British Columbia to volunteer to build us a bench. Now, don't all fight over this, but let me know. Somebody put in the chat, let me know who can do that, and it'll be an absolute honor and privilege for you to be able to do that. And we can get a bench off to Josh. Josh and his wife just had their first child just within the last few months. Big congratulations out to them. Okay.
Need to move on.
So, next question.
All right. So this next question is probably the most popular and might take the most time, but it is coming from Dennis Williams.
Hey, Dennis.
In Ohio, and he says, how does a Stanley with an IBC revival blade compare to a new Wood River plane?
That's a really good question. And you're right, it's going to take a long time, but I'll try to shorten it. So, have I got one here, Jake, that we've already done up? That number 6. Well, that's really not fair because that's a bedrock.
Yeah, but
I've done this up. I'll use this 4.5. So, I really should compare apples to apples. So where's the 5.5? There's a 5.5.
that's not apples to apples.
I know, because the 2 1/8 inch
So
blade.
a 4.5 and a 4.5 is your best bet. On
All right,
apples to apples.
all right, all right. So here's your Stanley number 4.5 with a revival blade in it.
Just a baby.
And I'm going to be brutally honest.
Is that even sharp?
I don't know. I'm just going to put it together for a minute.
Wait. Here, this one is.
How do you know?
I know.
Is that the one you and Ken were working on all day? Yeah. That learning phase of sharpening takes a while, right? Okay. So there's your Stanley. I'd like to get the weight. Ken, can you grab us a scale
It's
in your night dress?
right there by the.
Here, wait, whoa. Talk about not dressing you.
Feels like
Look,
a
here, turn around, turn around.
Feels like a choir
Well, that's a
robe.
goalie jersey.
Feels like a choir robe.
It is a goalie.
Ken.
Goalies have lots of gear, so they have to wear a bigger.
It's behind you on the rack.
All right, so here's the two. They're almost the exact same length. Of course, they'd be the same width, so they're using a 2 3/8 inch blade. This is a low knob. So Stanley made 2 different types of knobs if you were to compare them. That one is, look at the height of that one, it's really high. This one is very low. A lot of people preferred this because you were just closer to the work. I don't know if it makes that much of a difference, but if I had my choice, I would take that one. Give that a plus. Now, there is a lot to be said for the old handles, or the rear totes. These are made out of Brazilian rosewood. They feel absolutely fantastic. They just fit the hand so beautifully. These do a pretty good job. I've gone in and modified mine. I actually cut it down farther into here so you wouldn't squeeze your pinky so bad. Babinga versus Brazilian rosewood, but you're not going to be able to, well, you might be able to if you're, because we're talking. Question again, please?
The official question?
Yes.
Give me a second here. Okay, so it was,
I just want to know the question.
how does a Stanley with an IBC revival blade compare to a new Wood River plane?
Okay. So, let's weigh them. Weight is your favor. Or weight is your friend. So the Stanley comes in at 2,306 grams. The Wood River comes in at 2,754. So how much of a difference?
450.
450 grams. See if I can actually tell. Oh yeah, it's noticeable. Not huge, but definitely in your favor. I'm just going to try to cover the basics first, or the not the basics, but the stuff that you're just going to notice that don't really impact the performance.
So, obviously one of the Stanley is representing the cheapest, a fairly cheap plane with an expensive blade.
Right. So if you look at the cost, you can pick up a Stanley. Let's say you splurged and you spent $50. You overbought. But at $50, you're going to have some work to do because they weren't built to tolerances that are what you're going to get in this. So let's say you have to put in a Saturday afternoon. I wouldn't say you're going to spend a lot of money. It's mostly just going to be labor. When you're done, if you look at that, if you talk about using it on its side, now I don't typically use a 4.5 on a shooting board, but we'll say that this will apply for the 5.5 as well. So you have a little bit more surface area with the bedrock, with the Wood River because of its bedrock style, square sides. So it's going to be a little more stable in this application. That's a plus. This is going to come off sound like a pitch, but you're going to have to just ignore that. We have available now, and this is something that we've been working on for how long? Give me a number. Over a year. So this is called the adjustar. And what it does, it replaces the knob. So if you've ever had problems trying to adjust a blade because that stupid little knob is either so small or too smooth and it's just a pain to adjust, you're going to love this. You just go in there and you use your finger and it gives you all that leverage of those 5 spokes. It doesn't fit the Stanley, at least not yet. Now you can get it to fit the Wood River, and that's a huge advantage. If you're over 60 and you got a bit of arthritis in your hands, you just died and went to heaven. What else can we pick out? Well, all right, I'm assuming you're not talking about a bedrock. So if we take these apart, the first thing you're going to notice is that the bedrock, which is the Wood River, has a frog that you can adjust without disassembling the plane. Here's what I mean. Now, I'm assuming that a lot of people don't understand this. My first line of defense, or I shouldn't say first, but one of my lines of defense against planing wood and preventing tear out is to be able to close the throat down. A sharp blade is going to do most of it, but if you still need help, if you close that throat down, as I mentioned earlier, and you get that cutting edge really close to the leading or the trailing edge right there, that part of the sole, now when that is going over the wood, it is putting pressure. This part right here is putting pressure down on the wood fiber, not allowing it to lift up as the grain changes direction. The blade wants to pick it up and tear it, holds it in place. That adjustment is very fine. Literally, you want it to be no wider than the thickness of the shaving when you're trying to work under a controlled situation like that. To do that on this plane would involve removing the blade and chip breaker, obviously the lever cap first, or for those of you south of the border, the lever cap. You remove these 2 screws, loosen these 2 screws. Now this one doesn't have it, but now you got to go in and you can see how much slop there is in the frog. And by the way, just to show you what I've done, because you're going to have to do this too. If you want this plane to work at its peak, you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to address these contact points before you do anything. You can see how I've gone in. I took this off. I took the lateral adjustment lever off. I took the yoke out. There's a little pin in there. There's just a friction fit. You knock that pin out. You get this out of the way. You take this off. But I had to file the end of this, make it so that I could knock that out, so I could get this off, so I could make this surface flat. And you can see that it wasn't. Now, I didn't bother to work this part of it because it wasn't important, but you can see how I was just starting to make contact here, but this surface was not flat. That means when your blade is sitting on it and it's not flat, it's not resting nice and firmly, preventing any vibration from transferring from the cutting edge to the rest of the plane. So you've got to go in and flatten that off. Then you have to make sure that these contact points, here, and there, and this, have to be mated properly. So you've got to go in, and that takes some work. You've got to go in and make sure that there's no rocking in that surface, in that area. But you can see how much slop there is side to side. So let's go back to where we were. By the way, all of this is covered. Ken, can you grab the Great Hand Plane Revival DVD for me, please? Should I be asking Rex? Hey, Ken, are you working on your presentation? Rex, well, I'll send Rex in there to do it. Okay, so I'd have to come in here. My blade is sitting here, so I have no idea how close to get this. So I'm going to bring it in. I've got to eyeball it when it's parallel to the opening. There really isn't any way to measure it, and there's no help in terms of any kind of tracking on the side. So I would get that where I think it's close. I would tighten these up as if I was ready to go back to work. I put the blade and chip breaker in. Now, you know, my blade's not even coming out. I'm way too far forward. So So that means going back and loosening these again. Pulling this frog back some. I'm trying to be patient. Eyeball it so that it appears to be parallel to the sole. If it isn't parallel to the sole, and when you put your blade in, it's going to end up hitting one corner. In the process of trying to get the blade edge parallel to the sole down here, you're going to end up hitting one corner before you touch the other corner. So your gap is going to be uneven. So that's why this has to be right. Now you would go in here again, put it back in place. Now, it's not projecting, but I'd have to move it forward. This is already getting to be too much of a pain. I'd move that forward. Now, I'm fairly adept at doing this. If you're not, you'd need to come in here and actually put that lever cap in, flip this over, turn it upside down, get the blade to project, check your gap. Well, in this case, I'm hitting one side, not the other, so that means I've got to take this apart, remove the blade and chip breaker again, careful not to bump the edge, loosen this up. Tell me when I've done enough. Move that a little bit to one side, bring it a little bit forward. I'm going to stop right there and tell you this. It is a pain in the rear end to do. And it's no wonder people just didn't do it because it was too much friggin'. All right. Instead, the bedrock style Wood River with the blade and chip breaker in place and the lever cap on. If you want to close your throat down, you come in here. I'm going to grab a different screwdriver. In fact, I'm going to set this down. I'm going to pick this one up because I have my adjuster on here because there's a big advantage. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to loosen that outside frog retaining screw, and I'm going to loosen that outside frog retaining screw. Now, it used to be they had to work around that knob, but now I can just get in between the spokes, contact that center screw, and as I move that, everything, the blade, the chip breaker, the lever cap, the frog, all of it moves forward. I keep a piece of something white underneath. I'm looking at my gap, and when I get my gap where I want it, I go back in here. I tighten these two frog retaining screws up. I've got my gap set, and I go to work. Now, you might say, well, why don't you just leave it there, Rob? Well, because if I want to get into a situation where I've got a lot of wood to remove, I'm restricted by a very tight throat to a very, very small shaving. Well, that's a pain. If I need to open it, I come in and I reverse the process. A quarter of a turn on either outside frog retaining screw, access the center screw, pull the whole thing back, tighten up the two outside frog retaining screws, and go back to work. That's an automatic transmission in a car versus no transmission in a car. So, here's my final thoughts on this. How much, Jake? $100 US for a premium blade and chip breaker. Well worth it. But is it worth it to put that into your $50 plane that lacks a transmission? No. I'll make an exception. If this belonged to your grandfather and you want to restore it and have a flood of memories every time you use that plane, by all means, do it. But if you're simply looking for a plane to cut wood, don't do it. Buy a Wood River from Woodcraft. If you're in Canada, you can buy it from us. We have an agreement with Woodcraft where I do not sell the planes back into the US. It says that on our website. You can get it directly from woodcraft.com or you can get it from the Woodcraft stores. You will be glad you did because of the advantages that I just mentioned. Okay. You're right. Don't predict long ones anymore. Then I have to fulfill your prediction.
Okay, this next one comes from, where was it?
How's our audience?
675. So not bad. You want another question?
Yep, one more question.
Okay. This next one comes from Kevin in Ireland. And he says, I have a Stanley 4.5 with sentimental value, and I've put a lot of time into flattening the sole and tuning the mouth, etc. However, the sides are not square to the sole. I don't have a grinder or a sander that I can use to square it. Do you have any other suggestions?
He said a 4.5, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and his name is Kevin?
From Ireland, yes.
Kevin from Ireland. Well, number one, why do you need the side square on your 4.5? it's a lousy plane to shoot with. So I wouldn't even bother because I never use that on a shooting board. If you insist, how are you going to do it? Well, we do it with a disc sander, and it's not very difficult. But to try to do that by hand, oh my goodness. And you have sentimental value, so absolutely. But I would, my first instinct would be to say, you know what, leave it alone, get the sole flat, make it work, find another plane for your shooting board. It's really too short and too light to be effective on the shooting board, especially if you get into some hardwood. Other than that, what to do? Boy. I suppose if you had some of this is really good sandpaper. This is made by Porter Cable. It's got an adhesive back on it, so you can lay that down and stick it to some nice flat surface. If you had a flat surface and you attached to that an upright, so you made an L-shaped surface that you could then, if you kept this, no sandpaper, and put sandpaper on that, and then you could come in, keep your blade in place, keep the tension on the plane, pull the blade back, and work against that sandpapered side, or I suppose you could do it this way too. Put the sandpaper on the bottom, keep this piece, but you got to make sure that you keep it square, and obviously you had to have made your jig nice and square. You could do that, but oh my goodness, what a pile of work. Especially if it's out any amount. My recommendation, get the sole fixed, go find yourself another plane for using in your shooting board. You're going to want it anyway. Okay? Let's stop right there. So this is soon to be November. November 11th in Canada is Remembrance Day. In the United States, it's Veterans Day. 2 weeks ago, we had a very special guest on that was fantastic. We got to honor a living World War II vet who fought D-Day +4 and fought through the hedgerows of northern France and ended up being captured and spent a year as a prisoner of war. His name is Herman, and I just I emailed John, his son, a couple of days ago to find out how he's doing, and Herman is still kicking. So Herman, if you're on, how are you? Ken, I thought, you know what, we need to do this more than just once. This is a big deal. Honoring these guys and these men and women is a big deal, and it should be a big deal, and we need to teach our children so that they understand that this is a big deal. So Ken has told me, we've had numerous conversations about this, about his father-in-law, and it was a really interesting story, and it's even more interesting the more I found out about it. So I said to Ken a couple of weeks ago, I said, Ken, would you come on and talk about him and just tell people, just so that they have a greater appreciation of what these 18? How old was he?
He wasn't quite 18.
Wasn't quite 18 years old. Think about that. Look at your own 18-year-olds and think. I tell people, I said, boy, if the 18-year-olds went to war today, it would be one melting mess. Anyway, I'm going to just turn the time over to Ken. We'll give him however much time he needs. He's prepared something for us. And there's a Luther connection in here that needs to be brought up as well. And I just think it's dandy. So sit back, relax, and Ken, it's all yours.
Where are we going to have?
You are going
to sit there.
Ken's going to sit there.
And Frick's going to put it.
You want a chair, Jake?
Frick's going to put my father-in-law's picture up.
Right now? You want to know?
I was hoping you'd do that instead of having me on camera.
I'll go back and forth.
Okay. So my father-in-law's name was Alden Green, with no E, and he was born and raised in Lubec, Maine. And Lubec, Maine is the most eastern town in the United States. If you go any further east, you fall off the end of the earth. And when he was, so he went to war in Europe, obviously, and he wasn't quite 18 years old. We were always told growing up that he enlisted when he was 18, but the official records, I found out later, he was about 3 months shy of his 18th birthday. So I don't know how that would work, why they would let him in, but anyway, that's what his records say. So you can imagine growing up in a little small town, 1,500 people, I think, about around there. At
Fishing
that time.
community?
Fishing community factories, fish factories. I think there was about a dozen fish factories there back in the day, and an American can plant that made the cans for the sardines. And yeah, so that's where he grew up. And he was from a family of 5 boys, all 5 boys, and all 5 boys were involved in World War II. And I'll tell you a little bit about them. I'll tell you a little bit about them a little bit later. So he was in the 42nd Infantry Division, and was went to Oklahoma for training, very short training, and they were deployed shortly after he got there. You can imagine the shock to your system of going from a little small town in Maine and then Oklahoma for training, New York and then Oklahoma, and then
New York would be the shock.
Yeah, it would have been then.
I could handle Oklahoma.
Yeah. So he was, as far as we can tell, and I met my father-in-law in 1968, 69, and I'd known him for 32 or 33 years before he died. Spent countless hours with him, doing many projects, family things, and never once did he ever talk about his military service. Was always very active in the local VFW, which was named after his brother, which I'll tell you about later.
Can you tell you what the VFW stands for?
Veteran of Foreign Wars. And they have posts like we have legions here. They have American Legion, but the VFW is just another post of Veterans Club. And he was always active in that, but never talked about his war service. And I heard from my wife, of course, that he was injured, but that's all because he never talked to her either. Just something he never wanted to talk about. So I never really thought it was that big a deal. And then in later years, about 1998, when they retired, he ran a restaurant business, and when he retired, went to Florida. They lived there, and we went down to visit them, and one of his friends there was a major in the Army, and he got telling me about his service, and I was blown away. I was shocked because I'd never heard any of it. So he served overseas in the 42nd Infantry Division, and I think 242nd Infantry Regiment, as far as we can tell, and was involved in the Ardennes-Alsace offensive. The Battle of the Bulge was part of that offensive as well. And was in a really bad battle, a lot of casualties, and his entire unit was decimated. And he was the sole survivor. And he had head wounds, shrapnel, and a gunshot wound. And was left for dead, but they discovered when they were collecting bodies that he was still alive. So obviously took him to the field hospital, and he lived. And after getting out of the hospital, was sent back actually to active service, and as a guard on one of the transport trains between.
What about his feet?
Cities. And he had frostbite on his feet, both feet, and they bothered him really for the rest of his life. But so he paid quite a price, and suffered PTSD as a result of that. Although back then they didn't know what that was.
Did you ever suspect, or did that ever surface that you would have noticed?
No, never.
So he just suffered in silence.
He suffered in silence, as a lot of people did then, and still do today. But back then, nobody really knew what PTSD was. So he suffered. He had severe headaches all of his life, and he was back and forth to the VA hospital on a regular basis. But he never complained, never talked about it, carried on a normal life, never missed work. He and his brother, another military veteran, opened a restaurant and ran it their whole lives, and he would work 60, 70 hours a week. So you would never know. And
That might have been the therapy.
yeah, maybe. So anyway, on his way back, once he was discharged, he had to spend some time in the hospital in New York and Boston. And he got discharged from the hospital in Boston. He had to wait overnight to get the train to Bangor, Maine, home. And somebody robbed him and stole all of his belongings. And one of the things that he had with him was his Purple Heart that he was awarded overseas. So, but again, he never talked about that. It never seemed to bother him either. Although he had no money to get home with, so somebody that was with him in the service that knew him loaned him the money to get home. So home he went, and but with no Purple Heart. So the years went by, and like I say, he lived a normal, productive life. Was a great dad, great father-in-law, and a lot of his service and events surrounding that didn't come to light until really after he was gone. So I was talking to his wife, my mother-in-law, one day about the Purple Heart Project, and because I had forgotten he'd ever got one, and she told me the story about him having it stolen, and was lamenting the fact that she would like to have often thought she'd try to get it back, but she had written to the War Records people and showed me a letter that she got back saying that the particular Army records were stored in Mississippi somewhere, I think, where they'd had a big fire around 1973, and all of his military records were destroyed. His medical records are in another location, but his military records were there. So he couldn't get his Purple Heart back. However, I told the story to you and to Luther, Colonel Luther, and lo and behold, Luther was able to get our Purple Heart back for him. And Frick, can you put that picture up?
It's up.
It's up. Good. So there's his Purple Heart that he worked so hard for.
I'm sure he didn't really want to get that.
No, he didn't.
That's called the Enemy Marksmanship Award.
Yeah. And he never really, like I say, talked about it. And he had 4 brothers, all who were, as I said earlier, active in the military. Wilbur was it was his oldest brother. He was in the Coast Guard. Ronald was another brother who was in the Coast Guard. He had a brother, Rex, who was in the U.S. Army, and he was killed he was in an air transport plane that crashed shortly after takeoff, and he was killed in that. And the VFW post in Lubec, Maine, was named after him. And Clayton, who was in the service.
His partner?
He was in the Coast Guard.
Was that his restaurant partner?
No, Wilbur, and they called him Tippy for some reason. That was his nickname. Everybody had a nickname back then in those little small towns. And so Wilbur was his restaurant partner for years. So that's the story.
Any of those brothers still alive?
No, he was the youngest.
He was the last.
He was the youngest, and he died in 2000. He was only 70. 76, I think. Yeah, so that's the story.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate you putting the time in and sharing that with us. We're going to have at least one more. I have a good friend who was, his dad was a Canadian in World War II. And hopefully I'm going to get him to come down and share that so we can have some Canadian representations too. Ken, by the way, Ken, do you want to tell him quick how you turned out to be both an American and a Canadian?
Oh, I was born in Calais, Maine, but I grew up on Campobello Island, New Brunswick. And
isn't there a president that spent some time there?
President Roosevelt spent his summers there. Campobello was in New Brunswick, Canada. Back when I was in those days, there was only a car ferry between Campobello and the mainland. There was no doctors on Campobello, so my mother's doctor was in Calais, Maine. So that's where I was born, in a maternity home in Calais, Maine. So that's how I'm a dual citizen.
And so Ken's wife, Pam, now works for us. She's in our shipping department. So if your order comes perfect, you be sure to thank either Pam or Gina for having done that for you. And we tip our hat to both of those ladies because you've been keeping them busy. Thank you. Great to have them. Appreciate that, Ken. Okay, Frick, let's go. Question.
All right.
Oh, hold on just 1 second. So, I forgot to mention, you can donate. If you want to be part of this, if you want that feeling like you've done something and you'd like to contribute and help, the funds we raise primarily go to paying for airline tickets, hotels, food, or the tools. We give each vet that we bring in. Now, in a normal year, we will bring in 42 combat wounded vets. Most are Americans, but that doesn't matter. I don't care where they come from. Of the 88 we've had to date, 1 Australian, Ash, down in Australia, a digger, 4 Canadians, and 83 have been Americans. So we bring them in. Every vet goes home with, in US dollars, about $3,500 worth of tools, and they get a bench. There will be a fantastic bench waiting for them so that they can go home and go right into doing this. And that's all thanks to Jack and Chris for helping us keep that together. We've had more volunteers than we were looking for, which is absolutely fantastic. And we don't currently have room for any more volunteers, but don't go away. Unless you're a Canadian and you're in Western Canada, we need you. Your country needs you. And you can go on our site. The link is there where you can donate. Now, Santa Claus and his wife, Mrs. Claus, which are anonymous donors and supporters of our program, are paying for part of our prizes tonight. So at every $1,000 increment, what are you laughing about, Jake?
Super Dave.
Super Dave's on? At every $1,000 increment, we are going to give away a Wood River 5.5. We can send it to anywhere in the world. And it's going to be all dressed. Now, Jake said, Dad, what's all dressed mean? Means it's going to come out of the box, and we're going to give it the once-over. We're going to tune it all up. We're going to send it to you sharp. It's the service that we normally charge $50 for. It's going to come. Every $1,000 increment, we give away another one of these. In addition to that, I should have said this a while ago. So this is all stuff freebies, so you may as well know about it. We are giving away, Moose has donated 2 sweaters. So, actually 3, sorry. Here's what we're going to give away. Now, if you win one of these, you have until Monday to contact us and tell us the size, or you're going to forfeit your prize. Because we're still waiting on people from 2 weeks ago that won that have yet to tell us.
2 months.
2 months. So this is, what's this called?
Plaid Moose.
This is the Plaid Moose. Keep you nice and warm. And this is a hoodie. Very popular, nice and warm. Looks like my laces out of my skates going around the neck, and that says Canada St. John. So what a great way to talk about the Purple Heart. I'm sure people are going to say St. John, New Brunswick. Where's that? Now you can tell them. And we have to give these away because they're so popular. Where's the cat sweater? The ladies love these. The kids love them. We call this the dead cat sweater. But it feels like a cat. It's so... We have Megan's working tonight, or she'd be here modeling it, but it's so cozy and warm to wear.
We'd get Frick to model it, but I'm sure something would appear.
We're not going to get him to model anything.
Not through that thing.
No, yeah, that was obscene. So we're going to hold it up. Are we going to give away one of these? Or are we just going to show? So this is if you have a special woman in your life, get her. St. John was a very busy winter port. It was also... had built its reputation as a shipbuilding. The Marco Polo, do a little history on that, was the fastest schooner ever built. So, naughty girl, get it? And no, we are not taking any requests for Frick to model this.
That's too bad because there's a bunch.
There's a bunch. So if you want to get one of those for yourself, help support a friend of mine. His name is Moose, big supporter of our Purple Heart Project. He's got his heart in his right spot. Check him out. You'll see it at Pat's Secret Garden, and you can order your own. He'll take care of you, and you'll be able to get something really nice and cozy for that special person.
He ships out orders faster than we do.
Yes, he does. He's much better at it. Okay, so did I talk about all the stuff we're giving away?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're almost at our first 1,000 in donations.
Come on, guys.
You guys talk about
Frick, Rex, I haven't heard you give me one name yet, actually, because you're not doing it. Ken is. Ken, any names?
We're not sure what
Yeah.
Rex is doing.
Okay. Sorry, Rex.
PJ's on.
PJ's on? Really?
So is Mark.
PJ, haven't seen you in a long time, brother.
Mark's here too.
So PJ is right. I gotta bring it. I gotta talk about it. PJ, where are you? PJ, where is he? Erskine. Right?
Yeah.
And that stands for, CPO stands for Chief Petty Officer. Great story, PJ. You know what? We need to have PJ. He's got to be our next vet to come on and talk about it. Make sure we get in touch with you. Super. Fantastic. And Mark Smith is on from Fredericton. Mark, brother, you got to come down and visit us.
Kevin Burris is on.
Kevin, of course, Kev, how are you, brother? Kev, your jersey has already been assigned. I took a picture. I'll be sending it to you. These guys want to know about you.
And Eric Eberhard's on.
Yeah, Eric, Ebby. Where is he? Where is he, Ebby? You almost made it on somebody's back tonight, but is somebody wearing it?
I think Ken is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Attaboy, Ken. So SSG stands for Staff Sergeant, and I think that changed, so please let us know so we can address you properly. Anybody else? No? If you're a combat wounded vet that's been to our program and you're on tonight, please let Ken know. Tell him what class you were in so we can give you a shout out. Next question, Frick.
You know what I just realized?
What?
All of the ranks that we gave those jerseys were based off of the battle rattle picture that they gave Luther at the time that he put them on the website. So any of those guys, if they were active military, probably is not an accurate rank.
It was at one time. Well, we can't go in and change them, but we've got more to make because we have 88 and we only had 55 sweaters, but we've got another 20 some odd. Go ahead, Frick. What's up?
All right, this one comes from Josh Alba
Josh.
in Texas.
Tejas.
And he says, why are modern thicker plane irons better than older thinner ones?
Good question. Well, your first line of defense in preventing chatter. Now, I got to back up just a little bit. Aside from having a sharp blade, what's the most important thing you need to prevent in hand planing? And that is allowing that blade to vibrate. In fact, it's such a problem, they actually have a name for it. It's called chatter. That's a micro vibration of the blade at the cutting edge. In fact, the chip breaker, the purpose of the chip breaker was designed to help stabilize that blade. So why they didn't just think about it in the first place? Now people say, well, why didn't they just think about that? Well, why didn't somebody think about that? Why did they have to wait for me to come along and invent the adjustar? Why wasn't that done a long time ago? Who knows? Why didn't they make a thicker blade? I have no idea, but they sure should have. So here you had this little tiny blade that had no stability. I mean, you can flex that thing, right?
You can flex. You can.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, you can even deflect it when you're sharpening if you press too hard. So they would take this little thin, useless chip breaker, pardon me for interjecting, and they would have that right up near the edge, and its primary function was not to prevent tear out. I don't believe that hogwash for a minute. It was there to help stabilize that little thin blade to try to keep it from vibrating so bad. But you know what? When planes were made back then, they were designed, this is my opinion, but it's a good one, they were designed to remove wood or to shape wood. You would come in and finish either with a scraper or with sandpaper. When Tom Lee Nelson started making planes in 1981, he introduced a level of precision that had never been had in hand planes. And the end result was the standard now is to have a plane that is built so well that not only can you shape wood, but you can finish it. And part of the advantage or the reason is with that big thick blade in it. Now that's actually an IBC. No, that isn't. That's the standard. I'll show you. So this is the standard blade that comes with a Wood River plane, and I believe it's 125. It's 123 thou. Okay. So those thick blades will help prevent that chatter, along with all of the other contact surfaces that are properly milled. But your first line of defense is a thick blade. Thin blades vibrate, thick blades don't. Next.
Technology.
Pardon?
The blade technology is well.
Oh yeah, I mean I think you've got better steel today. I think you can hold an edge longer. And it's funny because Stanley used to advertise that their blades, the thin blades, were easier to sharpen. That is crap. Ola. If you're trying to freehand sharpen this, you've got such a small primary bevel on there, you can hardly feel it. You can actually flex that blade with your fingertips by pressing too hard. It is so much easier to sharpen one of these thick blades. And if you I'll just show you in comparison. Look at the difference in the size of the primary bevel that you have referencing on your stone. It's double. So there's no reason why you would ever want a thin blade in a plane. Not that I can think of. Next, Frick.
All right, this next one comes from Chris Goodwin in St. George, Utah.
Hey, Chris, St. George. Been there many times, brother.
Used to live there myself, actually. What is a good replacement iron for a Stanley number 4?
What is a good replacement iron? Well, Lee Nielsen makes a replacement iron. Ron Hawk makes a replacement iron. Both are going to be thin. You're going to top out at 90, 95 thou at the most. If you want the best replacement iron, you're going to have to buy an IBC. They're the only ones that are going to give you, is the number 4 125 or 140?
It's 140.
I think it's 125. I haven't got one here to measure. But let's just put it this way. It's going to be the thickest blade. You have to buy it with the chip breaker because of what I said earlier. That blade is too thick. With an unmodified chip breaker, the yoke will not project through. In order to engage the slot in the chip breaker, you have to have the special chip breaker that has the little tabs that reach down in. So the IBC is number 1, and the other ones, take your pick. You're not going to have any different. You're not gaining anything thickness-wise. You may get better steel, but you don't have the mass. Next. And we sell them, so you can discredit everything I said if you want to.
All right, so the next one comes from Jameson in Las Vegas.
Hey, Jameson.
And he's asking
been to Vegas.
If are there any vintage planes when restored that work better than their new equivalent version?
No. Nope.
All right.
No, the only thing that I lament is the way that handle fits. It's almost like it just hugs you back. It feels fantastic. I should spend some time copying it because I don't think it's just a half round on both sides. It just feels so good in the hand. And maybe I'm waxing a little too nostalgic, but it's great. But no, none of these old planes. And yeah, look, there's a bedrock number 5 and a half. What? Yeah, that's the 2 1/4. There's a bedrock number 7. There's a bedrock number 6. I've got bedrock number 4s. I don't think I have a 4 1/2. And that represents the best of the Stanleys. But I wouldn't trade any of those for a Wood River equivalent. Lee Nielsen's even better. However, Wood River is going to maximize your benefit for your cost. A Lee Nielsen is going to be a better plane in terms of how it looks and maybe some of the materials. But as far as performance goes, I think Wood River is the top of the line in terms of getting the most for what you pay. Go ahead, Frick.
All right, next question is corrugated soles versus non-corrugated soles. Is one better than the other?
Corrugation, in my opinion, corrugation is nothing more than a scam. What did he say? Why? Well, you'd have to go back to grade 9 physics class to understand that it has nothing to do with reducing friction. It was said to reduce suction, whatever. That's all hogwash. You're taking away material, so you're making your plane a little bit lighter. If you ever have a corrugated sole and you're trying to cut a chamfer, the corner falls into the corrugations, which is a pain. I know this because my first and my best plane that I had was an old number 7 that I had, a number 8 that had a corrugated sole. I bought it in a pawn shop, sent it away to a company that was associated with Ian Kirby in California back in the 80s. And for $300 and some odd, they went in and they machined everything so that it was perfectly flat, all the contact points, but it had a corrugated sole. I didn't choose it. It was the only one that was there. But it was a real pain whenever you got into a situation that I just mentioned. So there is absolutely no advantage to a corrugated sole. When I represented Lee Nielsen in Canada, we used to sell them, we used to offer it, but it was like, only because some people insist, but there's absolutely no advantage. And I would think after this many years, if there was one, I already would have found it out. There's none. Next.
Okay.
I don't want you walking away thinking, I wonder what he meant.
There's quite a few here. So there's a lot that are the same that you covered with the.
I have a quick one. Somebody wanted to know if the adjuster will fit a record number 5 plane.
Is your microphone on?
I'm going to, so that question, that question wasn't heard. So somebody asked, will an adjuster fit a record number 5 plane? So I don't know where Jake is with this, but I'm going to let him ask the question. Right now, we have adjusters to fit Wood River number 5, 4?
And a half.
Oh, sorry. So an adjuster will fit a Wood River 4.5, a 5, a 5.5, a 6, and a 7. It's too big to fit in a number 4 or a 3. It'll fit a Lee Nielsen. I don't know where it'll fit. We have them coming shortly that'll fit all of the Lee Nielsen planes except for the number 4, number 3, 2, and 1. We are now, Jake. You take it over as far as Stanleys and records.
Not yet.
But come on, tell me more than that.
I don't know any more than that.
Are we working on it?
No.
You're not.
Well, not actively.
I thought you were.
I can't keep up with the Wood River.
Is Paul working on it? Paul, speak up if you know anything about what's going on. Paul's our genius in Ontario that helps us with all this stuff. But I know somewhere we are looking at that. But again, it boils back to if that isn't your grandfather's plane that he used that you're resurrecting for your own use. If you're other than that, I had a guy come in here yesterday looking for buy a plane blade, and I talked him out of it. I said no. I said I'm not going to let you spend $100 on a $20 plane. It doesn't make any sense. Go home, save your money until you can buy a decent plane, and then you're not having to wish 6 months later, why didn't I buy the plane instead of just the blade? Go ahead, Frick.
All right, this one comes from John Root in Greenbrier, Arizona.
Hi, John.
He says, is the laminated steel used in the old Stanley iron superior to the metals used in irons today? How well does it hold an edge?
Read it one more time, please.
Is the laminated steel, which is used in the old Stanley irons, superior to the metals used in the irons today? How well does it hold an edge?
Okay, so I'll answer this question this way. With the competition there is among a half a dozen or so companies that make plane blades, everybody would be trying to make the best blade. Of course, everybody thinks that the most important aspect of a plane blade is edge retention, and they're probably right. So everybody wants a blade that you can sharpen that will hold its edge as long as possible. Based on my experience, cryogenically treated A2 steel currently gives you the most service for sharpening. Most serviceable time after sharpening before needing to resharpen. So any of the old blades, I can't imagine any of them holding up better than what we have today. Lee Nielsen makes great blades. In fact, you'd almost have to be a metaler just to be able to tell the difference between some of the premium blades. But I like the IBC because they do such a nice job in preparing the blade itself. It is great steel. Lee Nielsen's a great steel. I think you just have a little bit of a better presentation. Doesn't make any difference to the actual planing, but if you like to look at nice things, you'll like the look of an IBC. So answer is no. Today's blades are going to be better. You're going to pay more for them, but who cares? It's going to last you a lifetime anyway, as long as it works, right? And by the way, I want to say one more thing. So there's lots of talk about cryo-treated A2 versus O1. You know, and every time you ever hear anybody talk about O1, here's what they say. You have to sharpen it more frequently, but it's easier to sharpen. And I think to myself, what a dumb comment. It takes 32 seconds. If you haven't seen the video, look at the link below. It takes 32 seconds to sharpen a blade. Do I really care if somebody comes out with a blade that takes 27 seconds? No. So what's most important? The amount of time that I can use that blade between sharpenings. So if I have a blade that takes 32 seconds to sharpen, this is being ridiculous, and I can get 18 minutes of use before I have to resharpen it, or I have a blade that takes 27 seconds to sharpen it, and in that same span that I get on the life of the first one, I've got to stop and sharpen 3 times. Where's the advantage? There isn't any. Can you get it sharper? Look, here's the best way to determine whether or not you have it properly sharpened. If you can plane a board and run your hand over it and not be able to tell there's room for improvement. If you can look at it with the unaided eye and say, I can't see how that could be made better, then don't bother, because if you do, you're wasting your time. If my A2 blade can be sharpened that quickly, last that long, and produce that surface, then there is no reason to look any further. Next.
Sorry, I'm also totaling the donations this evening. We really miss Megan tonight.
Yes, we do. Megan, come back.
Okay.
Ken. Please. Dying here. Go ahead. What's next?
Where'd it go? All right, this next one comes from Scott in Westchester, Iowa.
Hey, Scott.
He's asking, which planes have a tendency to flex more while using, and does flex matter much? Does it affect the outcome for better or worse of the final finish?
Okay, I'm going to have you read that again because... read it one more time.
Which planes have a tendency to flex more while using, and does flex matter much? Does it affect the outcome for better or worse of the final finish?
Flex.
I read that. I didn't know what he meant by flex.
Okay. Now, if you're talking about, if I'm assuming that you're talking about this, the body of this plane flexing during use, can't see it happening. I've been doing this. I've been using hand planes since I was a teenager. I'm 59, so I haven't had them flex yet. I don't expect them to flex sometime soon. So I would say that question is not applicable. You're not going to have to worry about flexing on a plane. Never heard of such a thing, so don't worry about it. Just sharpen it up and go to work.
All right, this next question comes from our good friend Ebby in Bonaire, Georgia.
Ebby has a question? We're supposed to be asking him. Thank you, Ken.
He actually has 3 questions, but there's 2 of them I highlighted. So
now he's taking advantage of his position.
Yeah. He says, do you use any old wood body planes? Are there any advantages to them?
Yeah, I have. They're down there. I haven't brought them up here yet, but I have lots of old wooden body planes, and yes, I do. I even make some. When we made the traveler's chest, I had a round body. We had to go in. I had to make round-bodied planes in order to go in there and plane it, and it's quite easy to make a wooden hand plane. Is there any advantage to it? Well, yeah, because you can make it to whatever shape you want, and you can crank it out. Would I? Here's another example here. This is just a shallower radius. Here's some more examples here. Oh, I got several of them here. There's a plane that cuts a 1/4-inch groove for a drawer bottom. Here's a plane that cuts, what's this cut? This one just cuts it where it's moved a little farther out from the fence. That's another one where I just have it adjusted various. These are all been modified so that the groove is farther up from the bottom. So under those circumstances, yep, absolutely ideal. Would I replace a long-bodied wooden metal joiner with a wooden joiner? No, because that wooden body is going to move over time, needs to be maintained. It's a pain to go in there. If you're using a wooden plane, you have to have a little brass hammer, and in order to adjust your blade, you've got to go in there and you got to tap, 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 and you got to tap it this way and tap it that way. It's not. There are people that do it a lot, and they would say it's no problem whatsoever. But that opposed to this, a little adjustment with the lateral adjustment lever, spin it forward or back using your adjust star. Well, there's a commercial. No, never would I replace a metal-bodied plane with a wood-bodied plane that I can think of. Next question of Ebby's.
Yes, this next one says, what common woods do you recommend when making replacement totes and handles? And should the grain lay parallel, perpendicular, or skewed in the direction of push?
The old ones, and I would just follow their lead, the grain runs this way. So the grain is essentially parallel to the sole of the plane. What woods? Well, here you've got Brazilian rosewood. I would say that is probably maple. I would say that is maple. It's been stained. That's Brazilian rosewood. That's babinga. That is Brazilian rosewood. Babinga, Brazilian rosewood. You're not going to get Brazilian rosewood, so don't even bother trying. And you could use whatever you want. I would definitely use a hardwood. You want a dark, then you use some dark wood. And I would say that, any of the harder hardwoods, Paduke, if you want some color. If you just want to have a good, I mean, you could even make it out of walnut. There's not that much pressure on it when you consider there's that rod running down through it. I've never had anybody break a rear tote in their hand when they were using it. Next.
All right, one more from Ebby.
Any more shout-outs, Ken? I need you to flag me if you do.
Okay, one more from Ebby, and he says, nowadays, many old planes can cost as much as new ones, but require a lot of work to get them back to peak performance. Is there one old plane that would be worth the effort to hunt down and refurbish for daily use? What would it be?
No. I've got some gems. Here's a number 1. So this is an original Stanley number 1, and in good times they're worth about $2,000. Is that something I would use every day? Nope. Nice to have. Was fun hunting and finding.
Why are they so expensive? Because they don't make them anymore?
Yeah, they're rare. You know, remember talking about the war. A lot of this metal was consumed in the metal drives, both world wars, to turn into bombs and machinery and whatever else. So a lot of that stuff that was plentiful went away. So there's not a lot of it around. Where are all my planes gone, Jake? You where's my chamfer plane?
Bills had to be paid.
Well, I'm missing a bunch of planes, but would I hunt after anything in particular? You guys, if you're watching me, this is what I use, and all of this stuff can be purchased now. It's available. Stanley made the original router plane, but it was terrible. The mechanism that they used to hold the blade sucked big time. It was just, it hit a knot and it would come flying out.
Stanley made the skew block plane too.
Yeah, Stanley, it's a good point. Stanley made the skew block plane, but it didn't include a fence. So without a fence, it's useless. Lee Nelson made it and put a fence on it. Any of the late I wouldn't own any Stanley plane made after World War II. As far as I'm concerned, they were all poor quality. It's nice to go and find some old bedrocks because they got a little bit of history to them, and they were the best plane that Stanley made. But as far as a daily user, no. Again, it depends on what you're into. If you're into restoring planes, then you can knock yourself out. If you're into woodwork and you want tools that are going to work, then the modern planes are so much better. The mass.
The disadvantage to a bedrock is you're paying a lot for that old plane.
Yeah, most of these bedrocks in decent condition are worth more than their new counterpart, or at least as much.
And then you have to replace the blade.
Yeah, so you're out. No advantage to it. Next. Thanks, Ebby.
What's your opinion on American Canadian-made planes versus Asian-made planes?
Okay, so
that's from Jason in Washington.
Hey, Jason. I'll talk about Lee Nelson, made in Maine, and I'll talk about Wood River, made in China. And that may be a conversation that might be a little harder to have as time passes. So I know Lee Nelson well because I represented them. I ran Lee Nelson Canada. I was independent from April of 2000 till January of 2008. And I will stand and say that Lee Nelson makes the best metal-bodied hand plane that you're going to be able to buy. I was hired in 2008 by Woodcraft when Lee Nelson decided to change the way they did business, and they took their planes out of Wood River. They took it away from me. They took it away from a lot of places. And Wood River Woodcraft had to have a hand plane. So Jody Garrett contacted me and asked me, would you come to work with us and as a consultant and help us develop a plane line? And I did. And they were using a manufacturer in China that they had worked with for a long time. I didn't think they could do it, but they did. I told them what needed to be done, and over a period of time they did it, and they produced a plane that has here's I'll compare, I'll put them side by side. Here's a Lee Nielsen 10 1/4, which I kept because nobody else makes it. So they both have ductile iron bodies. Ductile iron is unbreakable as opposed to gray iron, which is what you're going to find over here in the Stanleys. It's stabilized, stress relieved and stabilized before it's ground, so it's going to stay flat. Both are the same. The handles over here are made out of, well, the standard on a Lee Nielsen is cherry. These are, what did we used to use on those? I can't even remember. They're a rosewood. I can't for the life of me remember. No, they were Cocobolo. That's how bad it oxidizes. These are Babinga. Does that make a difference? Yeah, these are a little nicer turned. Does it actually matter in use? Can't say it does. These parts are bronze and brass. They're pretty. These aren't. Does it make a difference? No. Looks a little prettier, but doesn't make a difference. The blade, as I mentioned, unless you're a metallurgist, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. I think these, actually, pardon me, that's not true, because this is a, let me just pop that out here real quick. That's an IBC replacement. So let me put the original in there. There's the Wood River. In this case, the Wood River, the Lee Nielsen is a little finer finished than the Wood River is, but does it make a difference in performance? Not really. They're both bedrock. They're both patterned after the Stanley bedrock. Wood River did not copy Lee Nielsen. Lee Nielsen copied Stanley. When we made these, we took Stanley bedrocks, we sent them over and said, here, make it exactly like this. So they both came from the same mother. The tolerances are supposed to be very close to being the same. And in most cases they are. So, bottom line, this is going to hold its value better because of the brand name. But if you're investing in hand planes as a means of your long-term retirement, you probably need to be talking to somebody about your retirement. This is the better of the two planes in performance, and on the wood can't tell the difference. So that's my answer. Wood River gives you the best value. Lee Nielsen gives you the best plane. And those are the only two that I can comment on.
But that's not to say that all of the Canadian or U.S. made planes are the best.
No, I mean, I'll say this too. There's some planes out there that are so ugly, I cannot have them in my shop. This to me, I'll use this as an example. That to me epitomizes what a hand plane looks like. It just, in my mind, this is a hand plane. This is an original Stanley bedrock from about the 1920s. And I just think that is a dandy plane. And anything that looks like that can almost get the same compliment. These ugly planes that are a piece of metal with a stick stuck in them, they may work, but I'm not interested in them, and that's just a personal opinion. Go ahead.
All right, so this one comes from the chat. It comes from Paul Middlesbrough in UK, in the United Kingdom.
Hey, Paul.
He says, hi, Rob. What is your take on the old Norris plane? I'm an apprentice joiner in the UK, and my mentor uses Norris A5 smoothing planes.
So here, I have a Norris right here. So this was the... here's an old version and here's a new version. So these are referred to as infills. So it was a metal body stuffed full of wood. So this is all wood. The frog is wood in both cases. They're heavy.
Can you take the blades out?
Quite a bit heavier than their metal-bodied counterparts. It has a very unique lateral adjustment lever and advance and retract mechanism. Pretty complicated. Well, I shouldn't say complicated, but I mean it's interesting. These are. I think I paid $1,000 for this. As at a wood show, and a guy had it for sale, and I bought it just to say I have one. Hardly ever use it. Never use it, actually. It's just there for looks. Why? Because I find the convenience of my metal-bodied plane. And I'll be honest with you, there were times when I thought this was the great plane, but David Charlesworth influenced me to look at the 5.5. And it is now my go-to plane. I say 85% of the time. You could probably say 90% of the time I'm using a hand plane. That's what I'm using. It works so well on the shooting board. It's just the right size. It's got the right heft. It's just a beautiful plane to be using on your bench. This, by the way, is made by Ron Breeze. I met Ron when I was doing a seminar down in Atlanta several years ago. Beautiful plane, mother of pearl inlay on the top. Look at that. You want to talk about a thick blade. Thing's massive. No chip breaker on it. No lateral adjustment on this. So this plane, in order to adjust it, you have to tap, tap, tap. Your little brass hammer, you tap it forward, you tap it side. So if you don't mind doing that, and it's just a lovely plane to look at. Would it be my go-to? No. Has some great mass, but I'm just a huge fan of this. I think anybody serious about woodworking, if you don't have a 5.5, you are missing the boat. I'll just go on record as having said that. You can argue. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. You just heard mine. Next.
Okay, this next one comes.
How are we doing on donations tonight?
We
got lots of stuff to give away.
We are over 2,000.
Ooh, talk about the chisels and that kind of thing.
Oh, I forgot. Thank you. So we just did a video. We just released it this week on preparing chisels. And I did 2 chisels when I did that. I took a brand new wood river, and I went through and I prepped the back and sharpened it. I took a brand new IBC 1/4 inch. Look at the back on that. And I went through the whole process of taking it up to 16,000 grit. And Jake said the other day, he said, Dad, we should auction that off. So if you want to buy
I'm trying to see myself.
a wood river, pardon me, if you want to buy an IBC 1/4 inch maple handle that RobCosman, if that's worth anything to you, has prepared and sharpened. And if you watch the video, because a lot of it's cut out, but if you've ever done this, you know how long it takes to prepare the back of a blade. And there's a wood river 1/4 inch, a little less money, but also been prepared, but using the trend versus the entire Shapton system. Both of these are on sale. Just put your bids in there, and it'll go to the highest bidder at the end of the night. 1/4 inch IBC, prepared, ready to go. 1/4 inch wood river, prepared, ready to go. Now, who sent us this? Who sent us the Cocobolo handles? Oh, Rex, friend of mine. So here is a Cocobolo Kerf X10. Beautiful Cocobolo handle. When I was putting it together, it bottomed out and the glue set up before the gap closed. You see that? So I can't sell it as new. So instead of it being $240, it's $100 and...
No, this is up for auction.
Oh, this is up for auction? Oh, okay, that's up for auction too. So that's a second Cocobolo Kerf X10. And if you don't know what a Kerf X10 is, watch some of my videos. You'll never want to cut half-blind dovetails without it. Once you see it, once you've used it, once you see it work, you'll be intrigued enough. So make sure we get the donations in so we can give all this stuff away. You just have to, all you have to do is put your name in. And we will draw, if we draw your name, we will send it to you. 5.5, fully dressed, ready to go, as if you took it right off of my bench. Next question, Frick.
We're doing an auction tonight.
We're doing an auction right now. For these 2 chisels.
I'm in charge of that too? You need to hire more people.
For these 2 chisels and this Cocobolo Kerf X10. Or should we just do one and save one for the other time?
Whatever.
Let's make it easy. We're just going to do one. Right now, we're just going to do the IBC 1/4 inch chisel that's been prepared. That is for maple handle. That is for sale. The other ones we'll save for the next broadcast. All right. So there you go.
So if you want to bid,
short-staffed.
If you want to bid, just put it right in the chat.
T-shirt.
Oh shoot! Pardon? Say what? What did you? Okay. So don't forget, we got Angie. They're not watching tonight, but they will be tomorrow. So Ken's cousin Angie and Lynn, we just delivered them. How many T-shirts, Ken? How many cases?
Oh, 9 cases.
9 cases of T-shirts, and they go in and they package them up beautifully. Angie signs them. So here are 3 T-shirts that we have. Army Green, Wood for Good. Angie's Teal, Wood Doing Good. And the original Navy, Wood is Good. Buy our T-shirt, wear it, keep you nice and warm, and it'll bring up the conversation. What's that all about? And then you can tell them about the Purple Heart Project, because our single biggest problem, and it always will be, are finding the men and women suffering from the effects of combat that need what we have. We can't find them ourselves. We need your help. We need everybody's help. The more people that know about this, the more somebody at some point is going to say, you know what? I got a nephew. And with any luck. You know what? Tony was here. Tony has become a good friend of mine. Tony Brahadur. And Tony suffers greatly from PTSD. He's had tours in Afghanistan, in Haiti. I think he was in Kosovo or Bosnia, one of the two. And you really have compassion for these people because what they did for our freedom is something we will never be able to pay back. The least we can do is help them somehow, if we can alleviate some of this suffering. And I'll tell you more about what we're going to do this coming year, but just keep those guys in mind and help us find the ones that we can help. Let me see my notes and see if I forgot anything.
We should mention that anybody that's watching this not live, if they're watching it after tonight, can still make a donation to the Purple Heart
thank you,
Project.
Ken. So if you're seeing this after the fact, you can always make a donation on our page. The link is on there. And all of those proceeds go to actually bringing vets in and helping them participate or get through this program. And I want to make sure I didn't forget anything else out there, please. No, I didn't. Okay, next, Frick.
Okay. This one comes from Christian Estrada in Guatemala.
Hey, Christian in Guatemala.
He says,
I haven't been there.
He says, do you ever need to lap the
Does
sides?
Randy live there?
No, Ecuador.
Ecuador. Sorry.
Do you ever need to lap the sides or soles of the planes to bring them back into flatness after many years of use? If so, how do you do it?
Okay, so cast iron. Now, I'm not a metallurgist. Frick, Jake, you're missing me here. Swing around a little bit. Cast iron, it's kind of like wood. It requires a time to season for the internal stress to come out so that the piece of metal will stay flat. I understand that a cast iron piece needs about 2 years to season. Well, plane manufacturers do not have 2 years worth of inventory laying around. So they tend to, the cheaper ones, cast it, machine it, and sell it all in the same week. You get it, it's not flat, and it's probably not going to be flat in 2 or 5, 10 years either. So you buy a lot of these old Stanleys and they're not flat. Now, Wood River and Lee Nielsen, they stabilize them before. There's other ways of doing it, a little more expensive, and they come out and they're flat and they will stay flat. So the question was, would I ever have a plane that needs to be reflattened? I would suggest that if you're buying an old plane, you probably need to look at it, and the chances are it's not flat, and yes, you're going to have to fix it. However, I used to teach this for a long time, several years, and I would go into a woodcraft store, and in a 4-hour class, we would take somebody would volunteer their plane, and I would go in, I'd go through the whole process, and we'd bring this up to snuff. I would tell people, I said, you can work a smoother. You can even go in and fix a jack, but anything beyond a jack, you get into a 4 plane, you get into a number 7, your ability to go in and flatten that sole with what you have in your garage or shop, no, you're not going to be able to do it. Think about it. You're pushing down here and here. Look how far away that bit is. You're not going to get it, and it's not worth spending going to a machine shop to have them do it for you. Very difficult to do the sides if you have to fix them. So I just the more I'm involved with this, the more I realize that this is just way too much work for what it's worth. If your time is worth anything, you can go out and buy one of these planes, and literally the day it arrives, you're woodworking. You buy one of these, and maybe a week later, you're actually woodworking, and you're going to put a lot of time and effort into the metalworking, trying to get it to that point, and you're going to spend money replacing the blade and what other parts need to be replaced. So it's possible, but it takes a lot of work. Now, I did a video called The Great Hand Plane Revival. Did we ever get a copy of that brought in?
Yeah.
It's right underneath your
Underneath the caliper.
calipers, underneath your calipers.
So there's the how long is this? 91 minutes. You can buy it in DVD format. You can also get it in on demand. Means you can have it right away. And it walks you through the entire process of taking a number 4. It was a number 4 we used. and go through and strip it down and all of this. So instead of me trying to regurgitate it here, it'll show you the entire process of how you fix that plane and get it to work. So that's the best I can do for you on that question. Next.
All right.
Any more shout outs for Ken?
No, nobody else. Yeah.
Okay, this next one comes from Jim Scasia in Roseville, California.
Hey, Jim.
He says, I have an old Stanley Bailey number 7 from my father that needs a little work to clean it up. Is it worth it to get your thicker replacement blade and clean it up, or buy new?
So Jim, it's your dad's plane, right? It's the number 7 though, so it's 22 inches long. I would look at it one of two ways. I would either I would build a nice little mantle for that in my shop, and Dad's plane would sit right there and watch me. I have a plane that my grandfather gave me, and I made it work, but I don't use it anymore, but I still have it. A number 7. Now you're getting into a little more money. If you're going to buy a Wood River number 7, how much are you going to spend?
$340.
$340 will buy you a brand new number 7. If you have your old number 7, you're going to spend $100 on a blade and chip breaker. And you're going to put a fair bit of effort in. If it needs to be flattened, you're going to have a very difficult time doing that yourself. I'm just warning you. You're going to need some kind of a flat reference surface, a hunk of granite, and you're probably not going to buy that for $10 or $15. Or you got to take it to a machine shop and have them do it. My first response is put it on the mantle. Put it somewhere where you can see it and think of them every time you walk by. Buy yourself a good plane and get to work. Most people only have time for one hobby. So if yours is woodworking, get tools that are ready to go and get at it. If you're into restoring old tools, well, in that case, do whatever you want. But that's my advice. Put it on the mantle. Next.
I'm all over the place here. Okay.
I haven't seen you move.
My brain. Where is it? Okay. This one comes from David C. in Madison, Wisconsin.
Hey, David.
He says, is it necessary to use a hand plane to smooth out power planed surfaces, especially in this age of helical carbide heads and 2-speed feed rates?
Woohoo! A newbie. If you are using a power tool to cut wood, unless it's a super
Smoother.
surfacer, which was made in Japan. A super surfacer was a thickness planer that had a fixed knife. It was on an angle, sharpened like a plane blade. And the bed had some kind of some device on it, would grab your board and pull your board underneath this knife, and out would come this 12-inch wide shaving, 2,000 inch thick. Pretty cool. But they also cost $25,000 or $26,000, and that was 10 years ago. Any other application whereby you are doing something to wood with a power tool, you are involving a rotary action. So I don't care what kind of knife you have on your thickness planer, you have a big steel roll with knives on it spinning like this. Your board's coming underneath it. So the knife is taking a bite, taking a bite, taking a bite, taking a bite, taking a bite. And that rotary action is producing a little wave. And then the next one comes on, another little wave. Now you can slow it down, and you got little wave, little wave, little wave, little wave. You can speed it up, and you got wave, wave, wave. You have waves. You put a finish on that, you're going to see these lines. You have waves. That is only there to dimension your lumber. You then have to come in and either sand away those waves or plane them. I prefer to plane them. So is a hand plane necessary? Ken, what's a hand plane? The most efficient tool in the shop, because only a hand.
We practice the service.
Ken, you spent all day.
I forgot my lines.
The hand plane is the only tool in the shop that can shape and finish wood all in the same procedure. Everything else that shapes wood has to then be finished with something else, and every other finishing tool can't shape the wood. Hand plane is the most efficient tool in the shop. Learn to sharpen it. Watch my 32 seconds to sharp video. Luther will put the link down below. Get yourself a Wood River plane. If you live in Canada or anywhere in the world, You can get it from me. If you live in the United States, buy it from Woodcraft. If you want, buy, and if you do, make sure you buy our service where we send it to you ready to go. And I want to tell you why. If you're out there by yourself in woodworking land, you've never been taught how to sharpen, you're trying to do it, you're self-taught, you have no real measure of what is sharp. You don't have a benchmark. I thought about this a long time ago. I said, wow, how unfair. So what we'll do for you is we will send you that plane sharpened by us. So when you get it and use it, this is what sharp is. And now at least you know what you need to learn to do. I got to bring my blade back to that level of sharpness. Then you can contact me about buying your stones, because spend your money on stones first. That's what makes all of your edge tools work. Do not scrimp on your stones. We put together kits on our website so that you get all the parts that you need. And there's two systems. There's the good system and there's the fantastic system. Don't expect the price to be the same. What was the answer? What was the question anyway?
I don't know, but Super Dave would like to say he loves his general thickness planer.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Well, then we don't need to send him another one.
He said it doesn't leave any little waves.
These inside jokes are so unfair. We have a thickness planer for Super Dave. We've had it for about a year. It's sitting out in the front. We've just got to get it to the shipper so we can get it to them. We blame it on COVID. I wanted to say something. What did I want to say?
Can you just quickly, which chisel is on auction right now? Is it the IBC one?
The chisel up for auction is a IBC 1/4-inch chisel, maple handle, that I have gone in and prepared. The back has been polished, flat, and up to 16,000 grit. You can see that puppy shine, just like a mirror. The bevel has been done as well. It is ready to work. It is brand new.
The current high bid, it looks like, hopefully I got this right, is $200 from Tailspins.
Yeah.
So that's a deal.
Anybody who wants to beat that, $200 is the current bid.
If you have ever watched how much time it takes to go in and prep that, you will appreciate that that's why nobody sells you chisels already done, because you wouldn't be able to afford them. It takes a lot of work, and it has to be done right. There was something else that I wanted to say. I'm going to do a quick commercial here. So we've got our sweaters that we're giving away tonight from Moose at Pat's Secret Garden. Don't forget your naughty girl. And if you really love her, get her this dead cat sweater. You'll love it. I promise you. You'll just think it's it's just fun to hold on to. Don't forget one of our t-shirts so you can help us promote our cause. Don't forget to sign up for our draw. We're giving away a fully dressed Wood River 5.5 that'll be ready to go as soon as it arrives. For every $1,000 increment in donations to the Purple Heart Project, that's what we'll do. And you can buy my chisel. And the money coming from this, I'm going to use to take my wife out. I hope that doesn't kills a bit. Next.
All right, this next one comes from Obi Bradshaw.
Who?
Obi?
Obi. The initials OB or?
No, OBIE.
Obi. Hey, Obi. Wait, hold on just 1 second. Are you telling me that our buddies in Louisiana and Mississippi,
Oh, Pete and
Pete Ambrose.
Ray.
Pete and Ray, are not on tonight?
I haven't seen him.
I haven't either.
Wow.
Maybe they didn't know that we switched
We
to
would
Friday.
normally be on Saturday, but it's Halloween, so next one will be back on a Saturday. Sorry, go ahead. Obi said what?
He's from Spokane, Washington.
Spokane. I've been there many times and
Spokane.
Spoken.
Spokane.
And he says, do you feel it's best to learn and use one large plane for all larger planing tasks as you do with your 5.5?
Here's the interesting thing. If you learn how to sharpen, as soon as you learn how to sharpen, you know how to use a plane. When we go to a wood show, when we go to anywhere that I teach, I don't have to teach anybody how to use the plane. I just hand it to them. If it's sharp, they pick it up and it's working. It's amazing. It's the people that don't know how to sharpen that struggle, and they think a plane is difficult to learn how to sharpen. I'm telling you, I'll say it again. If I hand you a sharp hand plane, it'll teach you how it works. It's that easy. So learn how to sharpen, and that question will become irrelevant. Promise. Next.
All right, last one. And it comes from Jason McConaughey in Napa, California. And he says, I have an old Stanley
Hi, Jason.
Bailey number 5, and I would like to turn it into my scrub plane. What is the best way to do that?
You have a Stanley number 5. You want to turn it into a scrub plane. Well, you're going to have to open your throat. The idea of a scrub plane, in case you don't know, this is a purpose-built scrub plane. I would probably use a 4, but you can use a 5. So it has a big open throat, big thick blade. Doesn't have a chip breaker, but that's not a big deal. Has a radius on the end, and it allows you to go in and remove a lot of material quickly. It's actually a fun plane to use. I shall demonstrate. Do we have a piece of wood here that I can waste? Ken, you got a piece of thick pine?
Yeah.
You want that piece of?
No.
Oh, use that.
No, never. I got one, Ken. All right, here's.
This is Rob's live edge demonstration.
Yeah. So, so while I'm answering this, give me one more question. So,
Wait.
because I got to clean this place off.
You should point out that you wouldn't want to use a 5 in a scrub plane application because it's too long of a sole.
Well, it's going to be a 5 is going to be a little heavy and a little long. Jake's right. I would choose a smaller plane for that function. But you can really move a ton of wood. Now, give me another question, Frick, while I'm getting this ready, please.
Nice, easy one from Bob Stevens in Denver, Colorado. He says,
Hey, Bob in Denver.
what is your second favorite plane after the 5.5?
Right here, low angle block, Wood River low angle block. You get one of those, and you won't regret it. That snap cap is a very convenient design. I really like it. Now, when they first came out with it, and I was selling them, I kind of had to convince myself I liked it, but because I was a big fan of the Lee Nelson low angle block. But this one is a little bit bigger, and I just found that, you know what, I actually really do like this because you can do a lot more work. Yeah. So here's we're actually getting ready to do a video on. We're getting ready to do a video on block planes. So there's the Lee Nelson and there's the Wood River, and you can see the difference in size. But I got quite accustomed to it, and I really like it. And it's considerably less expensive. But I really don't care about that, and I'm not stating that I've got more money than brains. But I don't think you should be worrying about the cost of your tools. You know, the difference of $50 to $100 on something that you're going to use for the rest of your life. That just doesn't make sense. You know, if it costs $200 or if it costs $280, $280 is a better plane, then get it. It won't take long before you'll forget what you paid. And then it won't matter. She doesn't forget, but when is that ever going to change? Okay, so here's a piece of pine that we butchered in the shop a while ago. So I've got my, this is actually made by Pinnacle, which is a woodcraft brand. They no longer make them. And if I had to move a lot of wood quickly, yeah, it's not going to matter. I could go in here. Let me see if I can get that blade out a little farther.
Can we get Frick to show this?
Pat?
Very funny.
I said, can we get Frick behind this?
That goes back quite a ways. You can pull it. Now Nice light shavings. All right, let's do our draw.
Wait, talk about something for 2 minutes. I got to organize the draw.
Give me another question.
No, I have to organize the draw. I don't have it.
Ken, any more vets?
None, no. Oh, Paul's on. Paul Morrison.
Paul from Australia. Our Paul.
Yep.
Paul
Hi, Paul.
from Australia for not so long.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're coming home soon, brother. Come see us. Come into our bubble.
That was a better workout than hockey, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was worth at least a minute and a half shift. So, Grimstead, Rufiange, Erskine. I always knew them by the first name. Phi, Jers, Gray, Wilk, Carroll, Bolden, Thibodeau, Schumann, Wilhelm, Weatherhead, Smira, Witowski. Boys, wonderful to know you. And we will remember you for a long time. We need a, have we had one yet? I need a volunteer in British Columbia or Alberta to make me a bench for one of our combat wounded vets in BC. He's a tall guy too, so we have to talk specifically because we're going to make this bench a little bit bigger. But we need it. So please get a hold of us ASAP. And it is for Josh Briand. He and his wife just had a baby recently. Josh was artillery, Canadian Army. Frick, who's on your shirt? Final salute.
I got Bobbert.
Oh, Bobbert. Rex has Joe Bright. Joe's such an awesome guy.
I have Ebby.
And you have Ebby. Well, wait a minute. Where's oh, Jake had. Was Gary on tonight?
I don't think.
Holy Toledo. Well, they'll see it. Hopefully, they'll see it in the after hours. Okay, no more questions. You ready for us, Frick?
Yeah, I'm just deleting the duplicates.
Oh, people trying to
cheat.
what?
Trying to cheat.
I'm trying to do this with this jersey on. In case you're wondering, there's how far that blade is out. Can you see it? Do you need a dark background? Yeah, did you get it? And we probably could have taken it out even further than that. We'll try.
All right, we're ready. So we're going to do 3 draws tonight. We're giving away 3. The current bid on the chisel is $275, so you got another minute or two. Tailspins is currently the leader.
Who is?
Tailspins,
How much is it?
$275.
$275 for this chisel? Can they see that? Can they actually see the polish on that?
Frank, how well did they see the ball?
Let me check.
Here, we'll do the same thing we
it's
did the other
pretty
day,
good.
Jake.
They can see it pretty well.
With a business card. Or Luther's script. Tell me when you can...
Yep. Yeah, we can see it. It's like a mirror.
Oh, it is. And it's flat. So that's what you're getting. Come on, my wife has expensive taste. She chose me. That was the cheap side of her. She wants a Kubota tractor.
Oh my Lord.
Kubota tractor.
I thought her dad.
She's big time into horses. As are 2 of my daughters. Are we ready to draw?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so how many are we giving away?
3.
Oh, awesome. So we are giving away 3 fully dressed 5.5s. Somebody's going to be happy. We got a whole bunch of stuff. What are we going to do first? Let's give away one of those, and then a sweater, and then come back to one of those, and then a sweater.
Why don't we do 2 sweater, Do the 3 sweaters and then do the 3 clothes.
Oh, we're doing 3, right? We're doing the Canada, we're doing the plaid moose, and we're doing the dead cat sweater. Don't forget to go to Moose. Listen, if you want a great gift for someone, especially a wife, daughter, go check it out. His new site. Jake helped him build the site. It's called Pat's Secret Garden. He's a very good friend of mine. He's 72 years old. We play hockey together. He plays hockey 10 times a week. The man is he's a machine. He should be the poster boy for what a 72-year-old can be. And you can never look out in the ice and say, oh, there's the 72-year-old. No, it's that flash, that white flash that goes by your eyes real quick. That was Moose. Okay, let's do the first one. This is for a 5.5.
Okay. First draw winner is David Jadeski in Hamilton, Ontario.
Hey, oh Canada. David, congratulations. Get a hold of us, please. Let us know what your address is. So the next one will be for the, what's Moose call this?
Did a Canadian just win a Canadian sweater?
No, he just won a plane.
Oh, okay.
That was the plane. That was a 5.5. You have to get a hold of us. If you win one of the sweaters, you have to get a hold of us so we know your size and your address.
Okay, so Frick just drew.
For?
This guy wins it.
So this guy's won a sweater.
No,
Michael.
no.
This is a new guy. This is a new
This is
Yeah,
a new guy.
yeah.
Okay, so
I was drawing what you were
he
talking.
won the sweater.
Michael Shinsky.
Shinsky from
Mike?
Wisconsin.
Hey, Michael, you just
Okay.
Canada's going to keep you warm this
Now,
winter.
what does the next guy get?
The next one is going for a plane.
Okay.
This is going to be the second Wood River 5.5, all dressed.
And the winner is Joseph Jones, Rhode Island.
Joseph Jones in Rhode Island. Congratulations, brother. It's yours. The next draw is going to be for the Plaid Moose, Jake. The Plaid
I
Moose.
think you have to keep zooming in and out.
The Plaid Moose.
Plaid moose.
Plaid Moose goes to Marcus McCrae in Texas.
Marcus McCrae in Tejas. Congratulations.
They need more plaid mooses down
The
there.
third and final 5.5, fully dressed, is going to...
None other than Steve Totten in California.
Hey, Steve, congratulations. Way out in California. And now the dead cat sweater, the top prize
Grand
of the
prize.
night. Your wife will love you. Is this a unisex thing?
Could be.
You could wear it.
Everything is now. Michael Hankins in Missouri.
Hey, Michael in Missouri. Don't forget, you got until Monday
that-
to
is
get a
that-
hold of
Is
us.
that Michigan? What's MI?
MI is Michigan.
All right, Michigan, sorry.
Missouri's MO.
That's right. I knew that.
And you know what Mississippi is, Frick?
MS.
MISSISSIPPI.
So we gave away 6 nice prizes. Did we forget anything? Ken, any final comments?
Nope.
Thank you for sharing with us about your father-in-law. Tell me his name again.
Alden Green.
Alden Green.
Ken, were you watching the auction? What was is it still $275?
That's what I had.
And Alden Green is Pam's mother. Pam's father, sorry.
Pam's father, yeah.
Thank you to Pam and Gina. Particular thanks to Pam and Gina. We have been really busy, and they get your orders out, and they do it extremely well. And if you saw how busy that shipping room is, it's only going to get busier. So a big hats off to both of them.
So, who's the winner, Frick?
Tailspins. I'm telling him to contact you.
Tailspin,
Yeah,
Tailspin
275.
275.
$275. You got a deal. Super deal. Okay, we will be back here in 2 weeks. The date will be November 11th is a Wednesday. 11, 12, 13, 14.
14th.
November 14th. I don't know what our topic is going to be, but Luther will let you know that by email. Make sure you sign up to our newsletter if you aren't already, because anytime we, Ken, like the way I say that, anytime me and Ken screw up on a saw, and it becomes a second, it's always a cosmetic flaw. It might be a nick somewhere. It's most likely the engraving's on the wrong side. We sell that at a discount, but we only advertise it to our people on our newsletter. So it's a great deal. What are you looking at me
don't
like
do
that
that.
for? We don't do what?
We don't do that.
What don't we
You
do?
just said.
I thought that's what we do.
No. We advertise new products. But anytime you or Ken make a second, it goes out to people that have asked to be notified.
Well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Anyway, sign up on the
we
newsletter
hardly,
anyway.
We hardly ever make a mistake.
Good information. You don't want to see the pile. Anyway, the newsletter is a great source. Luther puts a ton of work into it. What's the topic for this one that's coming out tomorrow?
Precision.
Oh, introducing precision to your woodworking. There'll always be a video and at least one, if not two, articles. All right, have a wonderful weekend. Happy Halloween. Don't forget to salute a vet and be grateful. And protect your freedom. Vote. See ya.